Last year, we had over 10,000 units in the warehouse. At least 5,000 of them ended up unsold. For every unit, we lost about 300 yuan, which means a total loss of 1.5 million yuan. After the massive loss in last year's New Year season, even veteran wholesalers dare not buy back at high prices anymore. Prices are crashing. And yet, not a single unit has been brought back this year. The market has turned completely cold. The women's clothing section of World Trade City is nearly deserted, with the few remaining stores operating at a loss, as their revenue can't even cover rent. The speaker advises caution against opening new shops due to fierce competition and a lack of consumer demand. Even free attractions like the Ferris wheel and amusement park draw no visitors, underscoring the absolute desolation.
For the small and medium-sized garment factories that depended entirely on this loophole, the consequences are devastating. A worker at a 20-person factory explained that orders from Xi'an, previously a lifeline, have dropped drastically this year, forcing massive revenue losses. Li Lianghua, a factory owner in Panyu, revealed that nearly half of the Xi'an suppliers in his building have already closed in just 2 months. They told us to move to Vietnam to avoid U.S. tariffs, he said, but small operations like ours don't have the resources to relocate. We're surviving by selling on social media, one piece at a time. Once home to over 20 Xi'an suppliers, only a handful of businesses remain in his building, and even those are barely hanging on. The situation isn't limited to Guangzhou. In Dongguan, a luggage manufacturer recently lost all 4 of its American clients, wiping out $150,000, 0 cents in revenue overnight. Across the country, U.S. companies are quietly scaling down their China partnerships. The scale of the blow is massive. According to Nomura Holdings, over 10% of China's exports to the U.S. fall under the small pack exemption. U.S. Customs processes over 1 billion of these parcels each year. That pipeline is about to be choked off. And it couldn't come at a worse time. China is already battling a severe overcapacity crisis driven by slowed economic growth. Export prices are dropping at their fastest pace since the 2008 global financial crisis. Chetan Sehgal of Templeton Emerging Markets summed it up. China is exporting deflation to the rest of the world. The consequences will be global. Now those consequences are crashing back on China itself. With Western markets tightening and U.S. trade policies hardening, many Chinese manufacturers have no place left to turn, as one industry veteran bleakly observed. These goods can only be sold within Asia now, and competition here is only going to get bloodier. CCP's tariff war pushes Dongguan factories to the brink. 18-year export giant suspends production. As the U.S.-China tariff war intensifies, China's once booming export industry is sliding into economic paralysis. In the southern manufacturing city of Dongguan, one of the country's oldest export companies, Dongguan Dehong Electrical Products Co., Ltd., U.S. tariff exemptions scrapped. A death blow to Chinese garment industry. As the United States prepares to cancel its long-standing tariff exemptions for small packages from China and Hong Kong starting May 2, 2025, a quiet economic disaster is unfolding across China's once thriving garment manufacturing hubs. Factories are shuttering, orders are vanishing, and entire industrial zones once humming with the rhythm of non-stop production are turning into ghost towns. According to Nikkei Asia, Guangzhou's Panyu district, known as the heart of Xi'an's supply chain and famously dubbed Xi'an Village, has become a symbol of rapid collapse. Rows of clothing factories that once fueled the fast fashion giant are now eerily silent. Xi'an-branded shipping bags lie abandoned in shuttered warehouses, a haunting reminder of better days. The cause: Washington's decision to eliminate the de minimis rule, which had allowed Chinese e-commerce platforms like Xi'an and Temu to bypass import duties on shipments under $800, 0 cents. Under the new policy, packages will face tariffs of up to 120%, with transitional surcharges of $100.00 per parcel starting May 2, rising to $200.00 per parcel after June 1. With 18 years of history and a portfolio that once delivered 100% of its products to the United States and Europe, Dihong has announced a full production shutdown effective April 11, citing the external economic environment, a thinly veiled reference to the crushing blow of new U.S. tariffs. Employees were notified that the company will halt all operations for at least a month. While basic wages will still be paid, the future remains uncertain and resigning workers are being paid out immediately. Dihong's story is not an isolated one. It's part of a growing wave of silent shutdowns sweeping through China's coastal industrial belt. A joint report from Chinese trade outlets, Sellers Home and Special Plastic Vision paints a bleak picture. Sino-U.S. trade has entered a de facto freeze, with American orders evaporating and Chinese exports stuck in limbo. Factories across Zhejiang, Jiangsu, and Guangdong are facing a collective holiday never seen before. With the May Day holiday approaching, many manufacturers are closing their doors indefinitely. Videos circulating on Chinese TikTok, Douyin, show that more than 50% of Zhejiang's foreign trade factories have suspended operations, some indefinitely. In Yiwu, Zhejiang's export stronghold, the situation is dire. Once the engine of China's global gift and seasonal goods trade, Yiwu is now gasping for orders, Mr. Fan, a former factory owner, told overseas media. Yiwu's export orders have vanished. The economy was already struggling, and now the government is still retaliating. Everyone in Yiwu is scared. Nobody sees a way out. In a warehouse in Jiaxing, a staggering 20,000 square meters of unsold export inventory now collects dust. A video shot from inside the warehouse captures the desperation. Products once retailing for $100.00 in the U.S. are now being sold by weight, not by unit. Branded items like Crocs and Zhong Shaoquan kitchen knives are dumped for mere cents. It's pure devastation, the videographer lamented. Clothes that sold for $100.00 now go for pennies. Nobody's buying. The warehouse has become a graveyard of wasted trade.
This individual listed major foreign companies like Bosch, Jabil, Hitachi, and Panasonic as having either scaled back production, laid off workers, or completely withdrawn from Nanjing. The Jiangning Development Zone, once a proud symbol of Nanjing's industrial prowess, has now become a barren industrial wasteland. Countless factory buildings stand empty, marked with for rent or for sale signs and contact numbers on the gates, but no one is calling. One observer noted that in the past, Nanjing was one of the world's renowned factories of the world, attracting a flood of Japanese companies, American firms, and others to invest and build factories, supporting the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands. But since 2023, Nanjing has been undergoing a catastrophic collapse of its manufacturing sector. The narrator describes the severe economic downturn in Nanjing, once a hub of manufacturing and finance, now grappling with the exodus of foreign enterprises and an unemployment crisis. Another major factory in Nanjing has announced its closure. Nearly 2,400 workers have been laid off, once the ancient capital of 6 dynasties, a star city on the banks of the Yangtze. Nanjing, with its blend of science, education, manufacturing, and finance, has now fallen into an abyss. This isn't alarmist talk. It's the bloody reality unfolding before our eyes. Foreign capital is fleeing, the manufacturing sector is collapsing, and Nanjing's industrial foundation is disintegrating. Today I came across another small door and warehouse processing factory, about 500 square meters, completely shut down. My friend brought me to check it out, to see if there was anything I could use. But it seems like there's nothing here I need. The floor is just littered with scraps of paper.
Experts are calling it a cold winter for Chinese exports, one created not only by American tariffs, but also by China's insistence on retaliatory measures that have boomeranged back on its own economy. With foreign buyers gone, supply chains broken, and warehouses overflowing, the economic shock is unmistakable. China's export machine, once the envy of the world, is now idling in silence. and in the heart of its factory towns, fear is quickly replacing hope. Can Suzhou Port's 3-month free storage policy save struggling Chinese exporters? As the U.S. raises tariffs on Chinese goods to as high as 245%, Chinese exporters are facing a devastating wave of cancellations. Containers full of unsold goods are piling up at ports, with Suzhou Port stepping in to offer a temporary relief: 3 months of free storage for export and import containers. But will this be enough? Suzhou Port's move to ease the crisis. On April 18, Suzhou Port Management Committee announced that all container terminals in the city would offer free storage for loaded containers from foreign trade companies through July 17. The goal is to ease pressure on exporters who are being crushed by soaring storage costs due to cancelled or delayed shipments. This move acknowledges a dire reality. Chinese export supply chains are freezing. Yet Chinese state media like CCTV continue to paint a rosy picture, claiming that even though factories have paused production and deliveries to the U.S., their R&D departments remain busy with accelerated plans to launch new products. Contrasting narratives on the ground. While CCTV interviewed a so-called Indian buyer optimistic about Chinese goods, social media paints a starkly different picture. Viral videos from exporters show shuttered factories and abandoned goods. One such video from Danyang Yipin Garment Co. showed workers unloading 60,000 down jackets that had all been cancelled. Another video from Berkeley Supply Chain Technology Guangzhou Co.mced, which used to boast 200 million yuan in sales and 60 employees, now shows an empty office. "The company is dead," reads the caption, blaming population decline, tariffs, and stagnation. Its founder, in tears, recounts his bankruptcy. "I thought I was a dragon, but I turned out to be a parasite." Widespread shutdowns in Zhejiang and Jiangsu. The trade war's impact is also being felt in Taizhou, Zhejiang, where Xi'an mechanical and electrical manufacture pleaded online for others to remember their name, predicting small and medium enterprises like theirs will be the first casualties in this economic war. "All shipments are halted, and our goods are stuck. We're the first to fall." The involution of domestic sales, a brutal price war. In response, platforms like Alibaba, Douyin, and Kuaishou are urging exporters to pivot to domestic sales. Special foreign trade zones and green channels have been launched, but these efforts are backfiring as local markets become oversaturated and vicious price wars erupt. For example, the home appliance industry is under heavy strain. With exports slumping, domestic markets are flooded with excess inventory, forcing manufacturers to slash prices to unsustainable levels. A manufacturer in Xi'an revealed that 30% of their exports were bound for the U.S. With sales drying up, they are now considering dumping stock in China at lower prices. Desperate domestic pivot in the kitchen and bathroom sector. Reports show that post-Spring Festival, kitchen and bathroom exporters began shifting to the domestic market. But Chinese media warn this may worsen price involution. As supply exceeds demand, profits continue to shrink. China's domestic market can't replace the US and EU. Chinese Premier Li Qian recently called for boosting consumption and strengthening internal circulation. But analysts argue this is unrealistic. Citizens like Mr. Tian from Wuhan ask, "How do you stimulate people who have no money?" "I'll spend if I have it. I don't need to be stimulated." Wages are stagnant and monopolistic structures dominate industries, stifling fair competition. "There's only one landlord left, the Communist Party," he says. "It controls everything." Independent scholar He Jiangping added that China's per capita consumption simply can't match that of the US or EU. Entrepreneurs often misunderstand the macro environment, which is why many restaurants in China shut down within 3 months of opening. Stark economic reality. China lags behind. Data shows the U.S. consumer economy accounts for 69% of its GDP, the EU 51%, while China lags at just 38%. China's total consumer spending stands at around $6.7 trillion, 0 cents, far behind America's $19 trillion, 0 cents. As tariffs bite deeper, Chinese exporters are being squeezed into bankruptcy. Suzhou's free storage may buy time, but for many the damage has already been done. Boeing announces it will stop producing aircraft for Chinese airlines if deliveries are refused. Boeing's CEO has made a firm statement: the company will halt aircraft production for Chinese customers if they continue to reject completed aircraft. This decision follows the return of 2 finished planes that were set to be delivered to Chinese airlines. Both aircraft were sent back to the U.S., and a third is also being withdrawn from China. The reason cited is the increasingly unfavorable tariff environment, which has made it difficult or undesirable for Chinese airlines to accept deliveries as planned. The Civil Aviation Administration of China, CAAC, has issued a directive instructing domestic airlines to suspend receipt of Boeing aircraft unless formally approved. Additionally, they have been ordered to halt new orders of aircraft components from American companies. These actions have led to a freeze on multiple deliveries. One 737 MAX intended for Xi'an Airlines was pulled back from Zhoushan Airport in Zhejiang and returned to Boeing's Seattle facility. Another 737 MAX, also scheduled for Xiamen, has departed China en route to Guam. In response, Boeing stated that it is evaluating options to reallocate the completed aircraft to other customers with high demand. Orders that have not yet entered the production phase may be reassigned to alternative buyers if necessary. More than 50 aircraft were initially scheduled for delivery to Chinese clients in 2025. However, as tensions between the two nations continue to escalate, Boeing has made it clear that it will not keep producing aircraft for clients who refuse to take delivery and is ready to shift focus to other markets. Meanwhile, Malaysian Airlines has expressed interest in purchasing the aircraft that China has declined should Beijing officially end its acceptance. This indicates that potential partners in Southeast Asia are closely monitoring the situation and are prepared to replace Chinese airlines in Boeing's supply chain. The current situation reflects not only a freeze in U.S.-China aviation cooperation, but also highlights how the aerospace industry has become a new battleground in the intensifying trade war between the world's 2 largest economies.